Okay. Hey everyone, thank you for joining. So I had a little bit of technical difficulties, and then Elizabeth did too, and it's just been technical stuff after technical stuff. So I so we're just going to get started. We're just going to dive right in because there is a lot to talk about. I have known Elizabeth since actually since the launch of today's Inspired Latina, the first volume, which was 6 years ago already, which is hard to believe. And I was immediately taken back by like Elizabeth's power stood out to me. She was very confident. It was evident that she's a mover and a shaker. And so I just gravitated towards her. I think a lot of times we recognize other people's power. And really the reason we see it is because it's something that we also possess, and that's why we can recognize it. So I'm really excited to have Elizabeth here today with us. She is an entrepreneur. She has an award-winning business, Metaphrosis Language and Cultural Solutions, which is an interpreting and translation company. She is she's involved in the community. She sits on a couple boards, including a board of a hospital. She is the first Latina president for NABO. And she's actually going into her second term. She just signed her paperwork for a second term. And as well as, aside from being an author, she is also has her own talk show, Oye, that is once a month, as well as Boricua Talks, which is every week. Correct me?
Yes, we try.
Almost every week. And I wanted to bring Elizabeth on because I think that there is a lot that she can share with us about about her journey as an entrepreneur. And then also, a lot of what Elizabeth talks about is power and how to, turn your fuel into, how to turn your fear into fuel. So I want to touch on that. So Elizabeth, welcome. I'm so glad that we are here today. I would love for you to share with us just a little more about starting your business, because I know it didn't happen easily. Can you share a little more about that journey with us?
Sure. After 30 minutes of trying, it might be a little bit silly. This was, I love you, Ruby. You make it so easy, regardless of kind of the glitches we face or trying to get back onto Facebook Live. That says a lot about how much we need to learn. So let me go back to my story. So my journey happened in 2007 when I decided, not even actually decide, I had sort of kind of forced into it. I was working somewhere where I was unrecognized for my talent and for my abilities that I have brought to the table. And I did it out of anger when I decided to quit my job. And sort of like my revenge at the moment, like, I'm going to get back at you, right? Basically, I was passed up for a promotion that I rightfully believed I deserved. And I know we can say this all the time, but it's actually a job. It was my job. And later on, a few years later, I learned that basically what they were going to do is bring in this higher position and demote me to like sales. And so when I went to apply for the job or ask for an interview, I was basically told that I could apply, I can interview, but that I wasn't going to get it because I was underskilled and unqualified, which at the moment kind of blew me away. And, I sat there very quiet because I didn't really know what to say, because that was the last thing I was expecting from my former boss. And then I got home and I got angry. And then I decided that I was going to quit my job because I wasn't going to train anybody else to do what I had created, which, you think about it now, it probably wasn't the best move, especially if you don't have a plan, you don't have a job, or you don't have savings. It's a very risky thing to do. So that's what I did. I went back and I handed in my resignation and had $500 in my bank. And I said, I'm going to start my business, my own business, and I'm going to do it differently. So I kind of took everything that I learned, like what I learned as a leader, what I wouldn't do as a leader, what I wanted my company culture to look like. And then I created Metaphrosis. But before I actually even did that, a few weeks later, I was actually invited to meet with a potential client who wanted to hire me on to help them make $1 million in their business. And before the conversation even started, the person sat across from me. She pointed straight at my, my face like a parent scolding their child, and told me, I want to know, like, how can someone like you help me make $1 million in my organization without a college degree? So that college degree came later on, but that you kind of left me a little baffled too. You, what, a woman, you a Latina, you a minority, you someone without a college degree, you would know what? So after a few exchange of words with her, I just basically said, this meeting has ended, and I left. And so those two things coupled together, Ruby, I said, I'm gonna call it Change the World, but I'm gonna do things differently. And that's how I ended up launching Metaphrosophy in 2007. And if you ask me like today, like, how did that feel? I would say they beat me down in those two events. They literally beat me down because I questioned myself. I lost my confidence, my self-esteem, and you start asking yourself a lot of the why questions.
Yeah, I think sometimes those why questions though, and even the, the pushing back, it helps us to, like, if that didn't happen, you wouldn't have started your own business, right? Like, if you actually got the promotion, you'd probably be working for someone else. And so really what was, I don't know, I guess a rejection was really redirection. We were being pointed into another way.
I agree.
I love that story. I've heard it, like I've heard you share it a couple times, and I'm always still so inspired by it because you really logically someone might say that you weren't in the position to start your own business. You were you a single mom at that point, or about to be a single mom? You said you had $500. So there was kind of a lot of odds stacked against you, but still, you turned it around.
I did. I actually got out of a relationship that I didn't want to be in either. So I think the power to journaling and writing, I actually kind of wrote things down and said what I wanted for myself on the right hand column of my journal, but the left hand, I actually wrote out my life as it was then. And I just said to myself, do you want the next 20 years to look like this for you? And the answer was no. And, leaving the job, starting a business, leaving a relationship, becoming that single mom, no money in the bank, making a lot of sacrifices, because even throughout that journey, or the first couple of years, I didn't pay myself. I got on public aid or public assistance. I'm not even sure what they call it anymore. Got on the medical card because I needed support anyway, to get me through this trying times. And I'm forever grateful for that. But there was just a lot of things in my life which just weren't right at the time. And I knew, and I wasn't 40 at the time, but I was getting there. And I knew that at 40, my life had to be turned around completely.
Yeah. And I think that that's also inspiring to me because it seems easier to do those things when we're younger. And I think as we get a little older, some of us become more risk adverse.
Yes.
But you still took the risk and took took that on. Did you ever kind of struggle with doubt or imposter syndrome, or wonder, like, am I going to be able to pull this off?
All the time. All the time. I think when you grow up in an environment where you don't have that love or support, or you're in a family environment where things weren't necessarily normal, those scar you for a very long time, but they actually mold you to become the person that you are. And and regardless of my upbringing with my parents, there were a lot of powerful lessons that I learned from them. And resilience was one of them. My father, who didn't speak a lick of English, but he opened a local mom and pop store and somehow managed to pick up the Sun-Times newspaper every day. And I don't know to this day if he was really reading it or just trying to learn how to read English, but he owned a successful store, right? With limited abilities of his own skills, right? No English. How do you communicate with customers that way? But he made it work. And so those are things that I kind of carried over, but it was late into my 40s probably that I started to even believe in myself. It's interesting when people see you for who you are, but you don't see yourself for who you are. And people would tell me all the time, oh my God, Elizabeth, you're this and you're that. And I'd be like, oh, instead of being proud and saying thank you, right? And then honoring those words and taking it in, taking it and making it into a mantra. So when you wake up every morning saying, listen, I am in my greatness. I am who I am. I'm powerful, whatever those, those things are, you knock your own self down. So I had to I carry that imposter syndrome, is what you said. And I did that for a very long time because what I was hearing people say about me really wasn't me. I think it was a cover up to maybe all the pain and the challenges that I went through. When in reality, I just wanted to be a happy-go-lucky person still, but still being that successful entrepreneur, that a successful mother and friend. And when I let down that shield that I was carrying for a long time, that I knew I had, because it was interesting, because when I would go out and do networking or I went into a room, I was literally forcing myself to be someone else. And then I intimidated people who didn't want to get to know me because they saw me as something else too. And when I let that go, I was like the happiest person, because when I was that other person, I was drained every time I go. I'm like, I had no energy. I'm like, networking is supposed to be fun, and it's not, because that's how I felt when I got home, and I didn't want to do it anymore. But it was the imposter syndrome that I was carrying for a long time. And I'm not perfect, and I still make mistakes, and I still say I don't know, but I'm also probably truly 100% confident in myself, more now than ever, even though there are times I second doubt myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely relate. I think it's exhausting when we try to be something we're not, right? Or put on the front, or feel like we have to perform. That gets tired, and it takes away the joy of it. And there's so much, I think, freedom and joy in just like letting down the guard and being who we are. And it's also in that we really start to connect from more of an authentic and vulnerable place.
Yes.
One thing that you said too, that you brought up a little bit about your background, and I think I've shared this before. One of the exercises that I do with clients and coaching is called the Warrior's Purpose, and it's kind of looking back at your life, oftentimes even in your childhood, and looking at how that prepared you for your purpose. And I'm curious whether you see something from your background that really prepared you for your business, like the fact that you went into language, for example, can be really telling, because I know a little more about your story. Can you share a little more about that and how your own life prepared you for the work that you ended up ultimately creating, the business that you're in of helping other people?
Yeah, definitely. I love that story because it was a major self-discovery for myself. So I'm in the business of language. So Metafrost is a company that partners qualified interpreters to go on site to businesses and organizations and interpret for people who don't speak English. So basically you look at it as those who don't have a voice, right? Or those who don't have a voice for themselves. And I come from parents who didn't speak any English. And then we were the interpreters that would go with them, which put us into the role of an adult. But then I also have two sisters that are from the deaf community. And that's just the beginning of it, Ruby. I mean, it goes even deeper than that. Sometimes when I share my story of being in a household of 9 people, right? 6 siblings, two parents, and a grandmother, that you would think our house was always filled with conversation and laughter and just noise, right? But our house always went silent. And it was because we have very strict parents. We had a father, very few words, but then my father was also an abuser. He physically would abuse my mother on the weekends. And we remained quiet. As kids, you're scared, right? And you're worried about your mom, so you shelter yourself. And we oftentimes sheltered ourselves in the corner, or we huddled together because of the fear. And so we didn't ever have a voice. And we, what I call like voiceless, right? We couldn't protect our mom. Even to some point, we couldn't even protect my dad, right? He was an alcoholic. He had a disease. We didn't help him because we didn't know any better and we didn't have a voice. So you take all of that and you put it in one bucket. And then I kind of got older and I knew that I was feisty. Like I always got myself in trouble. Maybe it was because I wanted attention, but I was feisty and I was always outspoken. They was like, oh, bocona, cállate, like the loudmouth, be quiet, right? And I was like, all the time. And they used to call me like the resentful one in the family, but maybe deep down inside, I wasn't the resentful one. I was the outspoken one, the one that wanted to speak up for others, right?
Strong-willed.
Strong-willed. And I also knew in the back of my mind that I used to say, I'm not going to let myself be treated like that. However, that was not the case. I'll be the first one to admit that I got myself in some abusive relationships too. And, allowed people to say things that weren't appropriate to me throughout my life. But it was one weekend when I went into a leadership alignment retreat. And it was there that I discovered how it all kind of folded back. It all came back together. And there was an exercise that we had to do that they said, think about your childhood and the purpose that it has in your business. And I got frustrated. I was like, what are you talking about? My childhood has nothing to do with the business I carry. I came here to learn how to make more money, right? And the facilitator, amazing person, he put his hand on my shoulder and he told me to close my eyes and then to think of myself when I was a child. And I literally saw myself for me, my little curly hair, but I was doing double jump rope. And then he just started asking questions and I just blurted out, I'm the voice for others. And then that's when it all came full circle. It was from the moment that I was a child that none of us had a voice that helped me create the passion that I have today to provide quality care in different areas through the voice of providing voices for other people, right? Because I believe every human being should be understood, they should be heard, and they also should be seen. So that's how, and partly I think that's why I'm successful, because I love it. I've been 13 years in business and I haven't woken up yet, even with COVID that shut me down last year. I haven't yet to say that I don't like my business. I love it. I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, that's a powerful story, because what I'm hearing, or what I'm picking up too, is that you didn't let the circumstances of your life, or the job, or not getting the promotion, you didn't let that like you didn't let that, you weren't a passive to that, you weren't a bystander to your own life, instead, like, of rather than looking at like poor me, it was like, what can I do with this, or how do I use this, or what's the lesson that I'm learning in this experience. So it was rather like, what's coming out is that you weren't a victim to your circumstances,
Yeah.
where you took that as a story. You really took it as like, I'm going to be the creator, and all those experiences, however difficult they were to you, and I imagine they were, there's probably some trauma associated with it, you still kind of turn that around. And I'm sure there was healing work. I don't want to bypass that,
Absolutely.
for sure, right? But you were able to kind of mine for the gold in it, and and take that, it developed you, and it made you who you are, and you get to share that with other people, in your mission, in the mission of Metaphrosis, and really, providing a voice, for those that don't have it. And I think that's an important lesson that we can all learn from that.
Yes. And Ruby, I don't think I ever saw myself. I never used the word victim, not even for my mother, because my mother was a victim of domestic violence, right? But I never even said that she was a victim. And I think it's because I don't like the word victim, right? Every circumstances I found myself in, I would have just asked myself, do you want to be in this place 5 years from now? Do you want your life to be like this when you get married, right? I would question, I reverse the question to say, if this is the life that I want, do I want to see this in myself? Or even for my children, do I want my kids to, to not have food on their table, because we didn't have food on our table. Sometimes we came close to being homeless, but I never used the word victim. And maybe that was part of my healing, maybe, like the hiding it internally, that, what, in a sense, maybe I was, but I didn't use it. I just was like, I'm pushing forward.
Yeah. It's like your, the mindset you had, was like, I'm going to make this happen no matter what. And no one's going to hold me back. Not even not even my own family, or not even the stuff that I've been through.
Exactly.
It occurs to me as if you were already, especially when you talk about some of the practices that you did, like writing down on a piece of paper, asking yourself, like, is this where I want to be tomorrow? It occurs to me as if you were already in the position of, what I refer to as acting as if. So you were stepping into the being of who you wanted to become, right?
Yeah.
And that's powerful. That's it says so much about the type of person that you are.
Thanks.
I'm curious. So you're moving into a little transition here. You're moving into your second term as the president for NABO. What has that experience been like, especially being the first Latina president in over 40 years?
Oh, it's definitely been an honor. We don't normally, our presidencies are 1-year terms. And again, I think this was another maybe, can I do this challenge for myself? Like, can I really be a president of a national organization chapter in Chicago that's so well known in the United States?
And just to break in there, for those of you who don't know what NABO is, that's the National Association of Women Business Owners.
Yes, with over 60 chapters currently. So I was asked back in 2015 if I wanted to consider myself to be president. I said, no, I had no hesitation. I was like, no, I mean, what can I offer? It's kind of like, self-doubting myself again. And so I actually turned it down because I was in the board at that time, and you have to sit on the board in order to become a president in the future. And so although I've been a member 8 years, I was asked again. And after I knew I was stepping down from my previous board chair responsibility at what Norwegian American Hospital, which is now Humboldt Park Health. I chaired that for about 3 years, although I was on the board for a total of 11. So I built some skills, right? Some experience. And so I said yes. I was very honored to be the first Latina. I love the list that I have going of being the first in many things, but I did it with a bigger purpose. And that was, I think women, Latina minorities, not just Latinas, but minorities, we feel often that we don't belong in certain places. We look in the room and we don't see people who look like us. And that becomes very intimidating. And I wanted to change that. And I knew that NABO was a really great place to do it at because I've been there for 8 years. And the first time I walked into one of the events when I first became a member, I walked out because I felt like, those women are smarter than me. They're more confident than me. They have more to offer than me. So, the list went on. And then I went back, and what I found was a room full of warm women. And in the past year, when we went virtual, a lot of that came out. Like all of our similarities, regardless of our colors, came out. We were all struggling. We were all facing big hurdles in our companies. We were all trying to figure it out at home. We were all mad. We were sad. So those moments that we got together, we were either venting, crying, laughing, or celebrating. And the reason why they asked me to come back for the second year was because we created something that wasn't there for a very long time. And that was, we created a community. We created a sisterhood. And our board has been the strongest that it's been in a very, very long time. And we actually now added 2 more. So now we're up to 15, which is what has been our goal and our max. So the momentum is going. What we're bringing to women business owners is amazing. And we don't want to lose that. And so by asking me to stay a second term because of my leadership and the leadership of my board, we know that we can be stronger even this upcoming year. We're already the largest chapter, meaning we have the most members in the United States. We recently won our membership drive, and we're receiving a lot of accolades for what we're doing. And before I leave, my goal is to really, I came in with I'm going to diversify our organization. We're bringing more minorities, but I changed that because it's for everyone, and I want to bring everyone into the room, not just women of color. With that being said, I want us Latinas and other nationalities to know that we want you here.
Yeah.
You are good the way you are, and don't be afraid. Just come in and visit us for one event and feel it and see it and be part of us. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's exciting. And Latinas right now are the fastest growing small business segment. And so it's a great way to tap into, NABO is a great way to tap into other women business owners that can relate to some of the struggles, that know what it's like to manage, family and a business, that, have survived the pandemic. Some of them having to pivot. So watching that, excuse me, our interested in being surrounded by like-minded women, Navo is a great option, and I would highly recommend that you look into it. I've been to a couple other events in the past, and it's great. And I think that says a lot about your leadership too, Elizabeth, because
Thank you.
really communities are reflective of their leaders. And so
Yeah,
I'm excited to see what chapter 2
I
holds.
know.
Navo.
Me too.
So let's talk about power a little bit.
Mm.
Um, what does power mean to you?
What does power mean to me? Power to me means the ability to take the power that you own and create something out of it, be something without actually using it in an, I don't want to say an abusive way, but in a negative way, right? Like we see powerful people in the country and they don't use that power to help grow the world or leaders. We have to own our powers in a manner that will inspire the next generation or the next leader in a positive manner to show them that you can have all the power in the world, but then you can also come back to your humble roots and share that power that you have with other people. So people used to tell me I was a powerful person in the city of Chicago, and that's what created the imposter syndrome for me. I don't want to be known as powerful because I'm not. I'm just Elizabeth with maybe a lot of expertise and experience behind me. So when they were telling me that, I just became a totally different person because I felt like the word powerful or power was very strong of a word. And depending on the person that you are, you can take it, you can interpret it different ways. So I learned to like come back down and use it in a
Well,
manner that if that inspires
uh,
everybody else.
yeah, and that's a good point. It's really about how we use our power too, uh,
Mm-hmm.
relationship to power, because power can also be about, I always think about power as like influence, right? The ability
Yeah,
to, or the ability to make impact, which is something that you're doing, or even that power is energy, and the type of energy
right.
the type of
Mm.
energy that we bring to something.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I don't know if I share this with you, but if you've ever heard the story about the day that I was invited to be a CEO at the Girl Scouts.
I don't
Uh,
think so.
okay. I think this is a very powerful story that talks about power and just sort of the influence you have when you talk about power's influence. So I was invited to be a CEO for the day for the Girl Scouts kind of camping thing. And I went out to the boonies, was 2 hours away. And I would tell you that morning I woke up like I did not want to go. It was raining, it was muggy, it was ugly. But I said, okay, you're going to be a woman of integrity and you're going to get up and go. All right. So I went, and I'm not a camper, so I'm not a fan of being outdoors. And I was paired up with two young ladies. One was a Latina, and the other one was a Caucasian lady. And we spent the day outdoors, right? We were doing stuff, building things, whatever you do at Girl Scout, that's what I did. And I left, and I was like, "Ooh, mosquito bites here." And all right, so all done. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And then recently I got a message on LinkedIn from a young woman who was the mentee that day who said that she never realized how how powerful it was to be a Latina young person,
Mm.
and that the impact I made on her on that day inspired her to go to college and be something. So today she is at Harvard University studying languages. Part is one of them.
Wow,
I
that's
know,
insane.
I know. And she also said that throughout her journey, she met other Latina women, but that she wanted me to know that I was the first that made
Oh,
the difference.
wow.
And oh my, you have no idea, everybody. I was like, so we connected. We connected and we had a Zoom call. And I said, you know what? I want to speak to you every month in any way that I can, mentor you, talk to you. And I love the fact that she has good family support. Her parents, oh my God, my allergies. But it was an amazing story that really felt like I was so heartfelt that I I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go. And I went. And I made a difference in somebody's life. So when you talk about power, there's a powerful story, right? The power that I had as a CEO that day and the influence. And she didn't know my story because I didn't share everything that happened to me in my life. it was just being who I was and spending that time with her, and kind of just the conversations probably that we had that day.
Yeah, it's so it gives me chills, because to think about um like sometimes we just don't know the influence that we have in someone's life. We don't know what they're going through and the impact that you've made, that and it's kind of crazy. It's almost like it's coming full circle, right? Because the influence that you had in her life, and then she goes to Harvard, and what she's studying is like languages, that it just goes to show you that everything is interconnected,
Mhm.
not only in our own lives, but how we are interconnected with each other too.
Exactly. Exactly.
What advice would you have for other women, that want to, that want to influence, that want to step into, their purpose, and what it might be a few words of wisdom that you would tell them?
Well, so all the women out there, I think you all have a gift. We all have a gift. We were born for a reason. There's a purpose why each and every one of us are here today. So if you want to influence, you don't have to start big. You can start small and grow from there and make things work and happen, right? And never think that you don't have anything to contribute, because every single one of us do. It could be one simple question that you ask at a table, or is one little small action that you do. That's your influence there. When we talk about like, what's your legacy? Well, I want to leave my business to my legacy is leaving my business to my kids or making $10 million. That's not influence. It's what we do for other people on this planet that creates a ripple effect for others to do it after you. That creates the influence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely relate to that. I mean, I was earlier today, I don't know if anyone saw my Facebook post, but I was writing about how, as I go through my own evolution, so does the way that I show up. And I've gotten really, really clear over the last, I mean, I've known it, but it's definitely a different clarity that I've had, that, being able to teach others to step into their purpose and their power is not just for them. It doesn't just change their own life, but it is fulfilling their soul purpose, right? And it is more about, it's not just about them. Like, obviously there's a benefit to them, but it is also exactly what you're talking about. It's the ripple effect. It's the ability to share their gifts with others. It's the ability to make impact. And one of the stories that I love is actually from the Bible. It talks about Deborah, and Deborah was she was a prophet, which is basically a truth teller. She was a judge, and she was a worshiper. And what she did, and it's only 2 chapters in the Bible, super small, but because of her leadership, she was able to free a generation for 40 years from oppression. And that's what I think that we as women have the ability to do, that we have to step into our purpose,
Yeah.
and even and have the influence that we need, so that we can make impact. Especially right now, we look at the climate and there's so much going on, and the difference that it would make if we would be who we were meant to be, so that we could be part of the solution to some of the things that are going on, right?
I agree. Yesterday I got a LinkedIn connection from someone, and then I checked out her website and I signed up for a mailing list. And then she sent me a message back and she said, I have to be honest with you. She goes, I haven't even started my newsletters. But my point of saying this is that she put herself out there. And Ruby, you and I both are guilty of this. There are many things that we wouldn't do because we wanted it to be like perfect, or we weren't ready, or we needed more training. Right? We used to talk about this all the time. And then here you are, like, I think maybe 3 years, if not more, and you're finally coming out to influence, right? Because you have a gift. And I've always said this about you from the beginning, like, of all the coaches that I think I've met, I love your style of coaching. I love what you give other women. And even if you started with just one person, it's that one person that you're going to influence, right? Like I did to this young lady. And this woman warrior concept that you came up with, it's fascinating. And I would refer anybody to, because I love the way you coach and you take your own personal experience. You take the training that you got to become an autological coach. I think I messed it up, whatever. But you have a passion for it and you care. And I think all that together just makes for a really beautiful style of coaching. And I'm throwing that out there because you and I waited to do things a little bit late. We sat on them because we talked about many things together, right? And when I go back to giving the advice, you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
You just do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just do it. Exactly.
Just do it.
And thank you for that, Elizabeth. We have talked a lot about different things. So, all right, we're going to do a quick lightning round. I'm going to say a couple words and then you're going to fill in the back half. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I am a warrior for
The next generation.
the book I'll read over and over again is
Brene Brown's Daring
Daring to Lead.
Daring to Lead.
My life anthem song is
I Will Survive.
My happy place is
Home.
I'm scared of
Let's see. I'm scared of not living my life to the fullest.
I believe
Everything's possible.
power is
I'm gonna take your line. Influence.
I am.
Who I am.
I am, and you fill it in.
Who I am. That's who I am.
You are who you are. My superpower is
Being a giver.
and my message for the world is
Be kind. Be kind.
need more kindness.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, Elizabeth. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you? How do they get a hold of you?
So I have a new brand, personal brand. It's called Elizabeth. Well, if you go just Google Elizabeth Colón-Rivera, it'll populate. That's one way of doing it. I think that's the best way. I'm on Facebook as Elizabeth Colón-Rivera and Instagram as Be Your Authentic Self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also have your, and they can, once they follow you, they'll be able to get access to like your Oye monthly chats and Boricua Talks too.
Boricua Talks on YouTube and Oye on Facebook Live on the Chicago Latina Expo page, which we do monthly conversations around things that are important to Latinos.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for joining today. I want and just giving up of your time, and despite all the challenges we have had with technology now going on twice, it doesn't matter, you guys. Sometimes shit goes wrong, and you have to learn to show up anyway. So we didn't go out the way that we planned. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that's part of the learning process. Part of the evolution is just being able to flow with it, not let things get in the way of you showing up. And that was really a true testimony today as we finagled every piece of technology for about 30 minutes. I just want to invite anyone who's joining to, this is going to be a bi-weekly series where we're featuring different women warriors on Wednesdays. And then if you haven't yet signed up for my masterclass, I have a masterclass going on next Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and it is Awakening the Woman Warrior Within. It's a free masterclass. We're going to be talking about power. We're going to be talking about divinity. We're going to be talking about purpose. So I will put that in the link in the comments. So if you want to sign up for that, that's a free masterclass. Thank you, Elizabeth, again, for being here and for just being influenced, for being grace, for being brilliant, for being generous. You are someone that I deeply admire and respect, and I'm so glad that over the years that we've really been able to build and maintain our relationship, even from I don't know how many states away.
Likewise.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.